And of course, I'm sure there's information that you could see soon enough on betonline.net about where various teams will go in the draft. And of course, we
Yes.
now know that the Falcons will be selecting eight. So our own Jarvis Davis was out at Flowery Branch today, and actually he's still there out at Flowery Branch today
Right.
for the end of season press conference, right? And that was the opportunity for, of course, the media to speak with Terry Fontenot, speak with Arthur Smith, and players to kind of get their thoughts on wrapping up 2022, but kind of looking ahead a little in 2023. So one of the questions that you asked was something that's always a topic of debate, right? And that is whether or not a team will choose to go with fitting a need with their pick, especially those high picks, versus going best available. Jarvis, what were your thoughts? Well, first of all, kind of share with our audience some of what the answer was for you, what your question was, and then kind of give our fans, our listeners, and our viewers your thoughts on what that might indicate for where the Falcons will go this coming year.
Yeah, see, one of the things I've always been intrigued by, because a lot of times people think that when coaches or general managers say best player available, they think
Mm-hmm.
that, oh yeah, like the people value quarterbacks more so than they value other positions. So if the best quarterback in the draft is right there, we're gonna draft him regardless of whether we got a quarterback or not. No, it's not
Mm-hmm.
necessarily how that works. And I
Right.
think he gave a really good example as to what knowing what your needs are, and not necessarily settling for the best player available about where you pick. And you gave
Yeah.
the example of Arne Ebiketie, and I thought that was very interesting, right? Because
Uh-huh.
here's a coming. This is coming from a guy that I've always said hashtag pass rush matters. Like that's my theme for the 2023 offseason, getting ready for next year. I think that the Falcons need pass rushers, and they knew they didn't need pass rushers. Like if you're gonna sit up here and say, "Oh, best player available," but you know
Right.
what you need,
Right.
so black, they have been lacking in that
Yeah.
department. So guess what they did?
Yeah.
They saw the value in Ebiketie, and they traded up for him to go get
Mhm.
him. So and that's what I feel comfort in. Like I
Yeah.
know if you're sitting there, you're going to be aggressive. And we talked about it on the show
Yeah.
about Terry being a little bit more aggressive this year. He
Mhm.
talked about shifting into the next phase of this rebuild.
Yes.
Those weren't his words. He didn't say
Mhm.
rebuild, but
Right.
he talked
But
about
next
shifting to that
phase,
next
yeah.
phase. This is the next phase. This is where you know that you need to address those glaring issues, right? Because you got a
Mhm.
solid foundation and,
Right.
as a team, and what you're trying to do. But
Mhm.
when you talk about what those things are, and making sure you're doing those things, and making sure you're addressing those issues. And I think that was one thing that I was kind of made me feel all right when he broke
Yes.
it down like that. He was just like,
Mhm.
okay, yeah, this guy, he understands what's
Yeah.
going on. It's not like he looks at games every week just like we do. And I think that when you know what you need, and you know what you
Mhm.
value somebody like an Ebiketie, and you
Right.
moved up and do it. That tells me that if they value Jalen Carter in
Mhm.
that first round,
Yes.
and they see an opportunity to jump up to go get him, they're
Mhm.
going to do that.
Yes. And they actually have been stacking, whether you look at draft picks, whether you look at money that could be utilized for free agency, they've been stacking the deck so that they can really go out and, like Terry Fontenot and Arthur Smith both said, move it to that next phase. And the word that you even used, aggressive. They didn't have to say the word aggressive. The speech, the focus, them giving that particular example. When he gave that AK example, I smiled because I
Yep.
was like, he's tipping his hand in a good way. He
Yeah.
wasn't trying to be deceptive or anything, but he was letting us know we went for what we wanted last year. And also, I think that gave us a lot of relief because, of course, being that we've covered the team the last few years, so we were there for the Kyle Pitts selection. We were there for the Drake London selection. And while we respected the fact that those guys really were best available at that time, it really kind of made us nervous, especially this go round, because we are like, oh God, a receiver. But
What are we
then,
doing? Why are
yeah,
we ignoring this other side of the football?
yeah, we're like, oh no, no, no. But when they were aggressive in going after Arnold Ebiketie, and then it kind of kept going, Troy Anderson and D'Angelo Malone,
Yeah.
all of a sudden, a sense of relief came on. And then you get confirmation this season because you started seeing those players come on and
Yeah.
actually make some impact. And that also speaks to one other piece that I thought was interesting, where they talked about. how what their focus would be in terms of how they balance going after guys in the draft and going after veterans, and how they used this year's template of, hey, we had to do 1 year contracts, right? 1 year prove it. But now we're in a position where we may be able to be a little bit more aggressive and go after some of those higher caliber and higher quality guys. So like you said hashtag pass rushers matter. And for me, I'm like hashtag use all your picks on defense. Hashtag,
I
hashtag pick
think you're a little bit more forthcoming than I am in this particular
Exactly.
situation.
Hashtag pick defense. All I'm going to say until that draft day. I can promise you that. The other thing I thought was interesting and actually very encouraging as well is the thoughtfulness with which Arthur Smith talked about selecting his next defensive coordinator. He
Yeah.
was so fortunate to have built that relationship with Dean Pease starting in Tennessee and bring Dean Pease out of retirement the first time to come here and bring him in for what they were hoping was 3 years, but obviously he ended up just coming for 2 years. But we talked about it yesterday. Obviously, he's already made the imprint. But then they talked about really casting a wide net and not rushing this process because they want to get the right guy in the system with not just the players they have, but the ones they know they're going to go after. That said, I wondered, I like that thought, but does that still mean at the end of the day that Frank Bush, their linebackers coach, who also subbed in for Dean Pease when he got injured in that Saints game when he got knocked down, is he going to get as much of a look to become that next DC, especially because he's had 2 years under Dean?
Yeah, I think he's definitely going to get a strong look. But if you're asking me if you're going to get preference for the position, I don't think so. Because here's the thing: I think Arthur Smith is really clear as far as what he wants, and Terry Fontenot even went as far
And
to say that, like
yes,
those are the exact words.
those
He
were
knows
his
exactly what he
exact
wants.
words.
So I think that it's for Smith is about establishing something, establishing a foundation. Like he even gave an example of the Baltimore Ravens, which I thought
Yes,
was
he
an
did.
excellent
I
example.
love that example.
Like it
Yes.
doesn't matter who the DC is. It's about a system, having a
Yep.
system in play, and knowing how you want to play and establishing culture.
Mm-hmm.
Terry Fontenot used culture probably about 30 times. You know
Very
what I'm
right.
saying? Like, I'm not
Yeah.
playing a drinking game with that particular term right there. So when you think about the coach knowing what he wants, the GM knowing the type of player or knowing the type of scheme that he wants to have or what he
Mm-hmm.
sees, he knows what he has
Right.
difficulty against when he's calling plays as a play caller
Exactly.
as well when he's wearing that
Mm-hmm.
hat. So all those things kind of add up to all right, we don't have to preference, Frank Bush, but we do know exactly what we want, and Bush may have a little head start in that,
Right.
being that he
Mm-hmm.
worked up under Dean Pease and he got a chance to call plays, and he was the interim defense coordinator for the New York Jets as well back in
Mm-hmm.
2020. So
Yes.
he has experience doing those things. So I think that Bush could be a candidate, but I wouldn't be surprised if they may take a look at a guy like Brian Flores
Yeah.
or Gerard Mayo. You never know, and it is because if those guys are able to say, "Hey, I understand what you're trying to do, and I can call plays accordingly," then they're gonna
Mm-hmm.
get the job.
Yeah, and you'll have guys like, I was reading an article from our friends over at the Falcoholic, and they kind of outlined very specifically some options. Of course, they mentioned Frank Bush. They also mentioned Tracy Rocker from the Eagles, and of course,
Yeah,
Arthur Smith keeps his Tennessee ties, so their D
absolutely.
line coach.
Yeah,
Terrell Williams was also an option listed there, but I say that to say that when you look at those defenses, you made a great point about the Baltimore Ravens. They have one thing in common, and that is a system. Like
yeah,
the Eagles system is vaunted. That has been in place for as long as we can remember, regardless of who is the DC. Same with the Titans. That is
yeah.
a defensive system that has been respected over time. So certainly those are some options. It'll be interesting to kind of see how it plays out over the next few weeks or months as they decide who is that guy is going to be on the defensive side, kind of leading the charge. And if you want to know about that, or you want to know how some of these dominoes are going to fall, a former Falcons defensive coordinator, for example, Raheem Morris, where is he going to land now that Sean McVay is pretty much giving all his people free reign to go wherever they want to? You want a reaction to that? Check out Locked On Sports today because they have the goods on all of the things going on, not just in the NFL, but even in the NBA. I'm sure they want to give you guys instant reaction on the fact that the Miami Heat shot 40 for 40 from the free throw line Tuesday night. Unreal. So if you want to check all of that out, go and check out Locked On Sports today on YouTube, on your Odyssey app, or wherever you download our podcast. Because definitely, of course, you want to stick around with us, but then you want to check them out next. And you love our For the Culture, which we're going to get into in a moment. So check out their show because they have Take of the Day, and it is really cool stuff as well. And Jarvis, one more thing, just in your overall sense of the direction of where the Falcons are going next season, we know that free agency is right there beckoning for the Falcons to do something. Did you get an indication, especially because I thought that there was some very, very positive commentary about Desmond Ridder towards the end of the press conference, especially when Terry Fontenot started talking about the process of what they were looking for in him. But the question did come up about the possibilities of where you go for QB or where you go in free agency. Did you get any indication of where they might land as far as a potential backup or even a potential competitor for QB1?
I don't think so.
Yeah,
I believe,
I
I
thought they were kind of
wholeheartedly
saying so
believe,
too.
I believe with my heart and soul that they are sold on Desmond Ridder.
I think so too.
And how long that is, I'm not. I won't put a number on that. I believe that they are sold on Desmond Ritter. They
Yeah.
like. I believe they like the development that they saw. They like the progression that he went through from game one to game four. That stuff matters. Consistency matters with Arthur Smith,
Yes.
and I think that Terry Fontenot, he loves consistency as well. That's one of the reasons why he fell in love with Desmond Ritter, because I talked about best player available and being out in those Senior Bowl games. I
Yes.
asked him about that, like what are the benefits of it, and his first example was Desmond Ritter,
Desmond Ridder.
right? Because hey, you get a chance to really get to know the guy and understand who he is, and like every time you come in contact with him, he was the same guy. And when you got to pay attention to that type of stuff, because when
Mhm.
coaches and general managers talking about consistency, uh, not only off the field, but on the field as well. A lot of times that transfers to on the field. Because if
Mhm.
I talk to you the same way, I engage you the same way, every time I meet you, more than likely your training, your being,
Mhm.
your ethos is what Terry Fonda like to use. Your ethos is I'm gonna be consistent with you.
Yes.
I'm gonna make sure I greet you and meet you and sit with you and do with you the same way each and every time. And that means a lot when you're talking about being an athlete and doing what you're supposed to do off the field from a
Yes.
studying standpoint, and
Mhm.
making
Mhm.
sure you're interacting with your teammates,
Yeah.
because we all know what their locker room, how important that is, and how
Yeah.
that what that get down is. So yeah, I think the Falcons are going to be cool with Desmond Ridder going to the 2023 season, and
Mhm.
I wholeheartedly believe that they're going to be more so of a backup situation
Yeah.
when it comes to that quarterback position, and not necessarily a guy who can compete for the starting position against Desmond Ridder.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be more focused on putting a few more pieces around him to make him successful. Because think about it, not to say take anything away from the current receiver core, and we know we've spoken highly of the running back core, but Desmond Ritter's numbers in just 4 games, especially on that critical third down, which is a place where they have problems all season, the average for the league is like around 88% for quarterbacks. His
Right.
was in the mid 90s. So
Yeah.
that's something to say you could hang your hat on because you know that that guy can help you move the chains in critical situations. But again, that's something to be encouraged about. So I don't believe Falcons fans need to be stressed about the draft at all. So we always talk about Bill Bar in terms of something you should eat when you're stressed out. Honestly, I think you guys around draft time will be eating that in celebration.
You
That's
better.
what I think. Yeah, let's put a positive spin on when you should have a Bill Bar, especially because they've kind of remixed their offerings and what they're bringing to you guys. So same delicious treat, but now even fewer grams of fat and calories. The caloric intake is going to be up, or the calorie intake is going to be up. So if you want to eat healthy and you want to eat positively in good situations, this is where you should go. 100% chocolate, check, that's still there. But now you've got a few different flavors: churro, peanut butter brownie, and coconut almond. And I know I like almond, so that's a good look. Now, only 130 calories. That's what we're talking about. Remember, the calorie intake used to be higher, so they've even gotten that better, and yet reduced the sugar down to 4 grams, increased the proteins to 17 per bar. So definitely check it out. If you're like me and you live in Wally World, you're going to find that you can find a bar in Wally World now. It's a 4-pack box at Walmart. And if you like me and you live in Wally World, the upscale version, Sam's Club, you can actually get a 13 bar box, and that box comes with those brownie butter bars that I talked about, or brownie batter rather, and churros. So again, you can go to build.com and order, but you can also go to Walmart and Sam's Club and get what should be becoming your favorite snack of the day.